personal branding is coming up that cliff. Struggle of persuading management to understand this concept is a bigger struggle than getting them to understand the metrics around social media and how we're going to implement. The way that we toe the line is by putting in the perspective of personalizing the brand. Not personal branding, but personalizing the brand. And Ron described it very well. We, at Capgemini, we have subject matter experts they're personally subject matter experts in their field, and they are backed by a 90,000 person global firm. And that is how we go to market, is through the person first, their subject matter expertise, and then being part of a network of 90,000 people internally and even greater externally.
Doug, it's your agency, or you're seeing other agencies, sometimes we call it corporate positioning, but in some ways it intersects with celebrity image management. What have you seen in terms of the need for executive branding services or personal branding services that suddenly intersect with B2B?
Sure. I mean, I think that gets back to the idea of humanization. I like to talk about it from the concept of the reputation cloud. If you start looking at your organization rather than the reputation of your organization rather than just being kind of about the top leadership, rather than focusing on the top leadership, really thinking about the cumulative message of all of the employees. How can you really get out there and empower them to understand the value that they can contribute to the reputation of the organization through what they say and do in social media?
I think one point that's come up a lot is is talent acquisition. I know one fear that companies live with is that if someone becomes high profile and they leave, they lose that person. Looking on the call where I heard a complaint like that. On the other hand, it's about acquiring talent that's out there who have big reputations.
I just hired somebody through Twitter. He just started yesterday.
Because of that?
Yeah. I sent out a tweet and got a resume and hired a person.
Michael, in your sphere, there's a lot of people who are really well known in technology and have been out there in an electronic way for probably longer than any other sector represented at this table. What have you learned about how does SAP walk that line? And does it try to encourage people or discourage people to build up their brands?
Yeah, our challenge is we're a German-held company, and so there's different perspectives, I think, that come along with that. We recently named 2 co-CEOs that are non-German, for the first time. And so for us, one of the largest opportunities is giving our co-CEOs a presence in the social spheres. They're the face to customers, they're the face to shareholders, they're the face to employees, and customers, shareholders, and employees are interacting in social media spheres. And so, when you follow those 2 lines of thought, it makes sense that we begin to put our leadership at the forefront and give them a persona with authenticity, I think, is important. Humanizing the brand, as everyone said.
Great. Alison, any perspective?
I was sort of nodding my head because I like that whole concept around authenticity. That's something that I talk a lot about. I think this, and I know that Jonathan reads this too. It's this kind of notion around them not being this kind of corporate entity and really being authentic to who you are. And in fact, again, this lawyer says, if I, there's a certain percentage breakdown, of course, being the lawyer that he is, about being very specific about what percentage is personal versus business. But I think this whole, venue gives us a chance to be, authentic to who we are and share what we like. And, if you're a big Mets fan, as I am, or whatever your interests are, you get a chance to kind of weave that into your story. And I think that when you meet someone in person, you're a real person to them, not just kind of an entity or a face of a company, because none of us are a face of a company. We are who we are, and we bring a lot of great attributes that I think redound to the company's benefit. I think this really gives people an opportunity to be multidimensional. So I just really like that comment.
Great. There's one question that, before we get to the Q&A session, which I want to make sure we leave time for, and I know this is going to elicit some groans from the panelists, but the best way to link social media to ROI? Let's quickly run around the table, because I know that that's probably what senior management and everyone's company wants to hear at the end of the day. And Ron, if we could start with you.
Well, a couple of things. People talk about social media being a fuzzy metric, and to some extent it's true, although more and more new tools are coming onto the marketplace that can show some of the actual returns. If you think about it, social media is sort of like public relations in that way. People say, well, what's the return on PR? A lot of people think about PR and they say, I know we need it, but I'm not sure exactly what it does. Except for marketing, which can do a real, cause and effect. And so if you think about PR and earned media, and you think about social media as being, earned media as well. It's the ability for you to get the company or the executive out in front in a positive light, which in turn builds what technically we refer to as brand supporters, brand loyalists, and more importantly, brand defenders. Will actually come to your aid when somebody else out there says something bad about you. Quick example, Business Week was for sale. Business Exchange was a separate website, social media platform. When word came out that we were being sold, 3 of the bloggers who were our users went out and wrote blog entries to Bloomberg about why they should keep Business Exchange. And that's stuff you can't buy. So to get to your technical question, if you define what your success metric is, and you can say, okay, if it's to drive sales, then can we actually track a click on a Facebook page that goes to a sell page or a microsite that goes to a converted sale, fine, you can do that. But there's a lot of other ways that social media can be beneficial, and a lot of it is getting up front and saying, here's what we're trying to do here.
I think that actually captures, sort of like what the creme de la creme metric of what social can be for companies when you talk about the consumer base defending the network. And it's often your community lets you know if you're succeeding.
Companies for many years were under the misguided notion that they own their brand. Back in the old days, companies would go out there, they put billboards, and they put display ads and out of home ads and everything, and they said, here's who we are, and this is our image, and everybody believed this. Even Web 1.0, the early websites, were basically taking what was happening offline, putting it online, one-way communication. What social media has done is shown brands that it's their customers who own the brand. And they have an opportunity to either deal with the customers, to establish a bond, to engage with the users, or to try to fight them, which really in the long run is a losing battle.
Ron, CBRE sells real estate. Is the metric that attaches to social media sales? Sorry, I keep throwing the hard ones at you.
No, that's okay. I mean, in some ways it is. In what I've found is that the return on investment will vary depending on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to a broker, then their investment, which is the time to do it, is am I going to get a deal? We've been very lucky that I've had several cases where I've got people who legitimately can say, I made a connection using social media I never would have made otherwise. That there's no way I would have made that sale. And as a result, here is a multi-million-dollar commission in the company's pocket. Wouldn't have happened otherwise. On the other hand, if I'm talking to my boss in corporate communications or to legal, it's a little different, because though they appreciate that, they see bigger risks. And so it's a little, that's where for us it's very fuzzy of how do we do it. And for us, return on investment is a little easier because our investment is very low. We're not in it whole hog yet. So I can show those little wins, I can show those, those victories and keep the ball rolling to build some momentum.
Alison, what's ROI at Fried Frank?
Well, I'm in my early days there, but in my past experiences, it was really being able to track those